Double digits. 9, 8. Wow, you guys are 6.
Okay, ready?
3, 2,
1.
Hey, Happy New Year. It's crazy, isn't it? You've just shifted again. And not because it's a new year, but because you're here right now, making the decision to better your life once again. And I know it can get really overwhelming. Everyone's talking about planning here and there, everyone's trying to get their shit together, and you're here like, oh my god. Where do I even begin? I know that you have big dreams and big goals for yourself, and if no one has given you any kind of reassurance for them, I'm here to tell you that those dreams of yours are attainable and that they aren't too big for you and that I believe in you. And you might be like, okay, I know that and I believe in myself and I'm amped up and ready to go. But like, actually though, what's the first step I should take to set myself up for the best year yet? I've combined everything that I've gathered, learned, tried and tested for the past few years on goal setting, personal growth, and just a great way to give yourself the best opportunity to fully reset again on the right foot. And the best part is that even if it's not the new year and you're finding yourself a bit lost and directionless and you need some clarity, you can always come back to this video at any point of the year. I've got things for everyone, for those who are my planner and task kind of people, if you are my spiritual and energy kind of girlies, if you love books and journaling, we can go through some resources over there, or just an overall aesthetic Pinterest and quotes and motivational speeches kind of group. We're gonna cover it all today. Let's go. So everyone has their own methods as to how they like to set up their year, but I personally find it a bit much to just jump straight into calendar and planning mode. So this is kind of like a soft launch to the highest version of you, and I like to begin with the word of the year. And what that is kind of like a brain dump. So I want you to take a pen and a paper, just use whatever paper you have or your journal, and just start dumping down words that you think could encapsulate the vibe or the feeling or the person that you want to be for the coming year. And bonus points if you have a bunch of markers like I do over here, and you can just make it all colorful and cute and really just let your brain run. And don't overthink it too much, but really the goal of this is to kind of start inspiring you and warming up yourself to get yourself in the mood to just be very excited for who you want to become. Throw on some music to just set the mood, make sure you have a clear space, a clear place to have your mind run free, and just begin. This doesn't have to be a word, it could be a phrase if that also helps you, but the goal of this is to try and orient yourself towards this word throughout the whole entire year, so that at any point when you're kind of stuck or you're like just at a stalemate of like, oh, what do I do? You think of this word and you're like, does my actions or does this decision align with this word? Once you've warmed up your mind with these ideals and narrowed down on your word, you can kind of orient your New Year's resolutions towards this mission, if you will. It's been said that people who write down their goals are more likely to achieve them, and I know for me, when I do that, it's something more tangible for me to have and always refer back to throughout the year. You can either write this down in your journal or you can type it out. I'm not entirely too sure if typing it out makes a difference, but to each their own. And I like to separate my New Year's resolutions into 3 parts: career, personal, and relationship. It's just a really great way to just section off different parts of your life so that you can have like priority goals and just have like an overarching, holistically successful year. When you're done writing it, take a few minutes to just look at the whole page. This is who you're trying to, this is who you will become by the end of the year. This will now be your compass. And I want to emphasize that naturally throughout the year, you're gonna find some bumps on the road, and you might even find that you don't align with any of the things that you wrote down, and that's okay. Sometimes you wouldn't constantly want to think about whether or not what you're doing contributes to these goals, and sometimes you just want to do things for fun without an agenda, and that's completely okay too. It's okay to go and have fun, it's okay to go and live your life, obviously, but when you do feel like you're ready to get back into action and you're like, yeah, best year ever, at least you have this to fall back into and just recalibrate. If you still feel a little bit stuck, don't worry, I will leave a link down below to a bunch of journal prompts that you can just try to figure out and dissect where you want to be in the coming year. The thing is, most people will just leave it at that without any sort of accountability actions that supports these New Year's resolutions. So why stop there? Let's go and create some best practices for ourselves in the coming year. This section is all about habit tracking, and habit tracking has been something that I've really enjoyed for the past 3 years or so. When you break everything down into these actionable habits, you can actually map out and see where you want to be in your everyday life. So for example, for me, I really enjoy meditating every day, or you want to just incorporate more water in your routine, make sure you're drinking enough. Or maybe you want to exercise more, whatever that is, or even read more. That's definitely on my list. It helps you identify and also gives yourself a little bit of a reward system so that you can have something to tick off at the end of each day to be like, yep, I did that today, no I did not. And then that way you're actually able to see a bit more of like a granular process throughout everyday life. The thing with this though is that you have to make sure that you don't judge yourself too hard if you miss a day or two or whatever it is. I'll be honest though, sometimes this comes in waves. So like sometimes 1 month I'll be like, yeah, this is really great, this is really helpful, and then other months it could just get a little bit overwhelming where I'm like, I don't want to track anything at all. I just want to like live my life and incorporate these habits freely and like a little bit more whatever. But when you are trying to start a habit, I really highly recommend habit tracking. Traditionally, people do habit tracking with like their bullet journals and they make it all aesthetic and everything, and that is something I really enjoy. But also I get when some people are like, okay, that's too much effort. Sometimes I feel that way too. So I also have the Habit app. It's a completely free app. There are parts where you can pay for it if you really want to, but to start off with like, I think like 4 different habits, which by the way, like you shouldn't be trying to build more than one habit at once, especially if you have no habits at all. This app is a really great tool for you to just begin building that. But if you already have habits that are in place, you can just start to add more and more. And same thing goes for your bullet journal. If you are struggling or have been struggling with discipline in your life, first of all, you are not alone. It is really hard to do. But secondly, I highly recommend the book Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg. I really enjoyed that one because it helped me with habit stacking. If you don't know what habit stacking is, it's essentially where you stack the new habit that you want to incorporate with something that you already do. And it really worked for me. It genuinely helped me create the habit that I really wanted to create for so long, which is meditating every single day. And I stacked that habit after brushing my teeth. So now I have that incorporated into my morning routine. To re-emphasize, do not overload everything. This is the quickest way where you will feel very discouraged that like you're not getting on your way to like becoming the best version of yourself, but also just like you might burn out. You might feel like, oh, this habit isn't working for me, it's not for me. It just doesn't give yourself a fair chance to explore and become your higher, newer self. We're actually not going to stop there. Let's actually turn up the intensity and go into detail of our everyday lives. Honestly, in my experience, when I do structure my day and I put in all the schedules and what I need to do in my everyday life, I wake up immediately knowing what I need to do, so I just don't like dilly-dally. Even if you have work, you go to work and then after work you're like, okay, I want to rest, I want to chill. And then one thing adds into another and you end up like kind of finding yourself just exhausted and not really feeling the motivation to do what you really truly want to do. It ends up making my life really chaotic in some ways because I'm like, what's my agenda today? And that just takes up even more mental energy. So we are going to prep ourselves so that we can just eliminate that portion and just get up every single day and be like, okay, this is what I have to do today, or whatever it is that contributes to those New Year's resolutions so that we can slowly move the needle. Let's go get our laptops. So I'm going to be going through 3 different platforms or resources that you can use to really structure out your day, and the first one is going to be Notion. In Notion, I created this new page, this template that I think I got inspo from other Notion professionals out there. But over here you can see I start off with the day and then I have some personal touches in between, like today's priority, what I want to get done, and then a task list that links to my other pages. I also have the time over here on the side so that it can accompany all the events or whatever I want to get done throughout the day and just have it break down in 15 minutes or so. There's also a breakdown of color coordination over here so that I know which section is for what. You can see I also have the habit tracker on Notion as well, just in case I feel like using Notion instead, and then some time blocks so that I can segregate my day the way that I want to. Next is Google Calendar, and it's completely for free as well. Actually, all of these are for free. And what I've done here is set up a new calendar called My Ideal Week, and this was inspired by Ali Abdaal. He recommends this in his video. I will link it down below. So the concept over here is to break down your day according to what your ideal life would look like. What's important is to include stuff like your wind down time or your night routine, and then also to include your wake up or morning routine so that you can have a very regulated schedule. It's also very healthy for you and have a very healthy circadian rhythm, because a lot of the time sleep is the main culprit as to why we are not on our A game. Similar to Notion, I also have time blocks over here. You just don't have to manually input the time, so it's actually a little bit more functional. I just like Notion because because it's also more aesthetic a little bit, but to each their own. And then I also made sure to include some exercise or some personal time to really make sure I set some time aside to start targeting the personal goals that I have on my New Year's resolution. By no means do I expect every single day to follow this specific structure or fall onto the specific times, but this will give a really good overall understanding and structure so that if I do find myself misaligned from it or lacking some direction, I can always come back to it and know what I am quote-unquote supposed to do. Lastly, Apple Calendar. I'm just going to transfer some of the key parts that I really want to keep in my schedule onto my calendar because most of the products that I use is Apple, so this will allow me to have a very seamless and accessible way to know what my structure and schedule looks like. I also noticed that last year I started putting in time blocks for my exercise and it actually kept me accountable. As you can see here on Notion, I also have this ideal week set up over here that I was using and kind of just very roughly built for myself in the last year, and this is what I had been using so far in 2023, so I decided to try and use these other tools that I'm talking about right now. But if you prefer Notion and you want to have it more customizable, this is also a very easy and simple way to do so. Doing this is also a really great way to reassess how you've been living your life so far, figuring out what you want to change, try and test different routines, and just be very honest with yourself. Like, is this really going to be the year that I become a morning person, or is this the year that I finally show myself that I am just a full-on night owl and do my best practices at night? I am writing this part of the video at 3 a.m. after all. This whole method really gives you another opportunity to be present and intentional. Don't just create a schedule that doesn't align with you. Find the sustainable rituals that best support your work. If you set a routine that is oppressive, you'll likely find excuses not to show up. Rick Rubin. I recommend creating some personal time and space when you build this schedule so that you can reflect and know your why. If you're drawing a blank, I highly recommend the book High Performance Habits by Brendan Burchard because he has an entire chapter dedicated to seeking clarity. Now it's time for my favorite part and the best part, which is vision boarding. So you're going to take a look at all your New Year's resolutions, you're going to take a look at your brainstorm of your word of the year, and then you're also just going to jot down a couple of things that you want for your dream life, and nothing is off limits. So you just write every single thing down. Next, you're gonna find images that represent that, so I definitely recommend Pinterest, and just download any images that resonate with you that also represent that dream, goal, or wish. You can also go on Instagram for some inspo and just screenshot a couple things over there, or just Google images to get started. Next, you are gonna go on Canva and you are gonna create a new design. I recommend using the A3 size because it has really good dimensions to be able to fit all your images, and it's also really nice to look at if you want to print it out. Drop in all those images that you selected and downloaded earlier and just start to rearrange everything. If you want, you can also go into Photoshop and do the same thing, which is what I prefer because it allows for a lot more flexibility, and I recommend putting the thing that you want the most front and center and make it the biggest so that you cannot miss it. I actually like to group all my images in terms of themes, so maybe some of it is my dream home and my dream lifestyle, maybe some of it is career oriented or hobby oriented. This is actually the first year that I'm creating a vision board, and my sister is all about it, so she kind of inspired me to create my own. And one of the last touches that she did was add some words, type in some keywords that you want to remind yourself of throughout the year. I ended up printing mine out and I'm super happy with it, and I really look forward to looking at it very frequently throughout the year. I hope this video gives you the best motivation and confidence to go and get started and chase your ambitions and have the best year you've ever had. Happy New Year, guys. Bye!